Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to a new episode of Halloween Backlot with Lou and you live. My name is VashSky, your host today, and of course, joining us for these proceedings, the one, the only, the amazing, some would say the iconic. Oh, I know how you love that, Lou. Lou, Wasserman's Ghost. What's going on, good sir?
Well, I'm alive and kicking, which is a good thing, and ready to answer questions and dispel myths and, you know, all that fun stuff we do here.
I am as happy as anyone can be for you being here, being able to join us. Awesome stuff.
Oh, Fantastic stuff. I should tell him that funny line that came out in my medical explorer. If you want to fall down laughing, folks, prepare yourselves. Sit down. Don't be drinking anything. This one really blew me away. Literally blown away was what I was having done. I don't want to get too technical, but I had what was called a heart arrhythmia, which means your heart, instead of going traditional lub-dub, is going blah, 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 all over the map. And that's not a good thing. How do they fix it, you might ask? Well, they zap you with a big bolt of electricity. And in the course of having this done, which fixed it just fine and was very expert at the local heart institute, which I give all credit to, I'm talking with the anesthesiologist, who was a veteran of this procedure from its very inception over 10 or 12 years ago. And he was talking about how in the olden days, they had to use a lot more juice to make it work because they weren't as fancy and they didn't have it refined and didn't have the experience and didn't have the wonderful toys to regulate said electricity as far as where it went and what it did. I don't know how many of you are electrical experts, but if you know what a joule is, Joule, it is a measure of electrical energy, like watts and volts and all those other things. And he told me that when they originally did this procedure, they used to use 950 joules, which is a pretty sizable jolt. Now, when I had it done, they're only using about 110 to give you an idea of how much less it is. So as he put it, quote, "In the old days, this place smelled like Burger King."
Oh, man. Charbroiled. Oh, man. That's
so there's an image for you, isn't it? But either way, they do good work, and I'm glad to be here. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that because it's so damn funny. Everybody I tell takes 10 minutes to laugh and then gets on with their lives. And I thought I told you already, Vash, didn't I? And you're still laughing. Yeah, so
but it's such a vivid imagery right there. Yeah, here we go.
Yes.
Josh Hammond. That's a pretty
lots
funny
of
stuff.
sizzling on the grill. And indeed, when they list the potential side effects, one of them is burning of your chest flesh. But I didn't have any of that, so that's good.
Good.
I guess I was made of sterner stuff than your average quarter pounder.
Average Whopper. Oh man, what a.
Well, I was going to say Whopper, but we don't want to go there because, we don't want to go there.
Fantastic, Lou. Well, I am pleased as anybody. Thank you so much for joining us for today. Also, too, somebody else who's probably also pleased, Samuel May with $3. Thank you so much. Right out the gate. Very much appreciate it. Got the guy with a thumbs up. Super sticker. Awesome stuff, Samuel. Thank you so much for supporting us as you do. Now, I guess we should start the show with something. I don't know. It's a little contemporary, but I am going somewhere with this here. We're not going to cover this story in depth like we would either be a live, a pro show, or anywhere else. I just want to bring it on screen as a jumping off point to other things here. As you probably have heard, Hollywood Reporter here, Disney's Snow White, Rachel Zegler apologizes for Trump re-election reaction.
Yeah.
I let my emotions get the best of me. West Side Story star wrote.
She wrote it, did she? Disney's PR people didn't write it, huh? Well, okay.
See, that's Hollywood. What I'm going to ask you. Do you think they influenced?
I'm assuming that her agent and the studio and everybody else backed her into a corner and said, "Hey, stupid, you ever want to work again?" Because she just let her emotions get the best of me. Oh, my emotions.
I mean, I'm surprised they didn't step in before all of this. I mean, do you think, Lou, that I can't see the Hollywood of old having let this slide here. This is, again, this is a reoccurring issue with this actress.
Exactly. And they wouldn't have let it happen more than once without giving her a rather stern talking to, and said to her, if we can replace all the strange baristas with animation, we could probably pull you out of this thing too and send you on your merry way and tell everybody else to do the same. But I don't know. This girl is so self-destructive, it might not even make a dent in her. She just hates everybody who isn't her, which hasn't exactly been an unknown trend in Hollywood history, but they never got so blatant about it in public, or were let to get so blatant about it in public.
Now, you say it was a trend in Hollywood history. What?
Well, I mean, lots of egotistical, self-centered people have been movie stars. I'm just saying they didn't become movie stars to the point of saying, I'm the queen, the rest of you are mere misguided plebes. I have disdain for you. That would have been a big mistake, and it never happened. Or at least if it happened once. And you never heard from that person again. This girl has made, 2 or 3 or 4 movies now, and none of them have made money, and none of them have been a success. And the big one just keeps getting more expensive and more impossible to release. So anyway, I don't think she deserves much more of our attention, ever. It's one thing to have some sort of talent that somebody sees in you. I certainly don't. But, or at least not talent that is in excess of so many others who could have done the same roles. But when you are chosen to be the next anointed one and you act like a jerk, you're probably cheating fate for what are very few times you'll have left. Enough said.
Oh, no issue. I thought that would generate some opinions there. It's just weird how she feels compelled.
Weird.
That's a fair point. Weird. It's just very strange how she feels almost compelled to take this movie even before it comes out.
Well, let's look at if she was logical. If she honestly believes that the vast majority of the audience out there for her work is somehow misguided or foolish or against her, doesn't she know they're also the people that buy tickets?
Yes, and as we've learned, I mean, she wasn't just upsetting like half of the audience, but honestly, she was upsetting what looks to be the majority of the audience, or at least the available ones in the United States. Worldwide, that might be a different story, but to go out of your way to try and I don't know, put down anybody in that fashion, especially with a big budget picture, especially when her career very well might be on the line. I mean, after this movie, if this movie doesn't do well, maybe you have studios that look at her and say,
but see, she already knows it's not going to do well. She already knows it's going to do awfully and cost them a huge chunk of loss. And she can now blame the audience, just like everybody else is. I keep seeing people who lost in this election blaming the voters. Well, duh, that's who votes. Oh, it's just, if I didn't have those silly voters voting against me and for the other guy, I would have been fine. And tell me something else I don't know. Anyway, I'm disgusted by the whole subject. Let's move on.
No problem at all. I have one for you. Now, Lou, you've often talked about the costs of films and not only their production costs, but also why studios feel compelled to get these films out on time, on schedule, and out as quickly as possible because of interest, which is interesting.
Yeah,
it's funny because
interesting. I like that.
Interest is interesting.
That sounds like a motto that should be on the wall in every bank in America. Now, interest is what interests us. Anyway.
Well, the story you always bring up is that one, the musical, the Barbra Streisand picture. Is that right?
Right. Hello, Dolly. Yeah.
Hello, Dolly. And how they The studio really lost.
The studio made a deal with the Broadway producers saying they wouldn't release the movie as long as it was playing on Broadway. And the studio thought, well, they don't play forever, even the big hits. Mm-hmm. But the producers kept up coming up with new versions. They did an all-black version with Pearl Bailey in the main part. They did, and they kept running and running and running. And while the movie's in the can, ready to be released, can't be. And it's sitting there, and they're paying interest on the money they borrowed, anticipating when they could start paying it back, and no, they can't. So yeah, that happens.
But holding on to the story for a little while here, because I thought, well, this is LEW'S point right here. It's contemporary, but I want to give Lew the credit that he's due right here. Hollywood Reporter: Lionsgate revenue falls as CEO concedes, quote, disappointing quarter. The media giant, led by CEO John Feldheimer, recently launched Lionsgate Studios as a standalone publicly traded company, split off from This Star's premium platform. Talks about specifically the Borderlands film, which just did horrendous at the box office. But he says right here, nearly everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It's sat on the shelf for too long during the pandemic, and reshoots and rising interest rates took it outside the safety zone for our usual strict financial models. Several of our other releases in the quarter, though cushioned by financial models that worked as intended, didn't live up either our standards or our projections. Interest rates specifically cited as one of the reasons why that film didn't actually do well. So, Lew, I mean, interest is a big thing. You have these things sit on the shelf for too long, they really stack up.
Yes, they do. They compound, as they say about interest. Outside of the range of outcomes we would expect. Yeah, it's got an A-list cast in a C-list movie, apparently. And I don't know. I haven't seen the movie. I really don't know. I just know that to say, well, quote, it went outside the safety zone of our usual strict financial. What they're trying to salvage is not this movie. They're trying to salvage their reputation as a responsible place to lend money to ever again, which is, because of this, and I'm sure some others, at risk.
Right. That's the important thing to note there, Lew, that this money wasn't Lionsgate's money. It
never is. It never is.
They're using other people's money.
Yeah. Well, and which group of people politically do we know who like to do that? And therefore feel somewhat unencumbered by the fact that, hey, it ain't coming out of my pocket. I'm still getting paid. So anyway, all politics is downstream from culture, or vice versa in this case. When you start out with a certain basic set of financial, political, cultural opinions and believe they will work in any and all circumstances, and watch them not work and say, well, they didn't work because either A, the people watching were stupid, or B, for some reason somebody disagreed, and C, don't worry, we'll do it right next time. Really, we will. Well, how many next times do you get? Obviously, in the case of companies like Disney, a whole hell of a lot with all these $200 million reshoots, but I don't know. Sooner or later, you got to say, my standard line about the most important part of the car is the nut that holds the wheel.
Right.
So.
And you've also said, too, multiple times that everybody's looking to not get fired. They're always looking for the next job.
Right.
So nobody wants to take responsibility. They shirk it in the ways that they do. In this case, our models were fine, but gee golly, we couldn't release it because of the pandemic or whatever, and that took us above our line. This is a bad movie, guys. Come on, you gotta.
And if you really want to get technical, these people voted for the people who sent the money to China to run the lab to develop the pandemic. So, anyway, enough of that. That's politics. We don't do politics here. And we don't do stock picks. And we don't do legal advice or even medical advice about Burger King. We don't do any of that. What do we do, Vash? What's next?
Well, Jan Monroe talks about, she mentioned in the chat right here, are there any good Thanksgiving movies out there? All I can think of right now is Wizard of Oz. I don't feel like watching anything that long.
And
For
somebody
those
made
who,
the point that I made to you when we saw this earlier, which is that in a way, Pocahontas is kind of a Thanksgiving movie. I mean, it's, about the Pilgrims in a way and the Indians and how they learned to live together and drop dead fish in the corn rows and all those other things that they did. And it's a good movie, I think.
I think it is a good movie. You know, Jeffrey Katzenberg considered this to be like Romeo and Juliet, but meets Native Americans and so forth. And that was kind of his pitch to the animators.
Yes, and those were two subjects, Romeo and Juliet and Native Americans, that the average movie-going audience had no interest in. But it's like them. He was right. Anyway. No, Josh. No. I've barely begun to politic, and I will not here. But I've been around a while, and I've seen some things, you know?
Sure.
Like that insurance company. We could talk about insurance. No, never mind. Anyway, yeah, I agree, Equishart, about the movie being very underrated. It's lovely.
It is super lovely. I like it. It is. The animation's beautiful. The cast is all-star right there. Anybody know who Captain John Smith was? Put in the chat right there. Because that's not a lot of people don't know that. Well, not the real one, but who played John Smith in the film? Because a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people, they're not hip to that. I will say, Linda Hunt obviously plays Pocahontas herself, and also Christian Bale is in this movie. Isn't that crazy? And I'm sure once you all figure out who John Smith was, you'll be even more mind blown. But great movie. It's just, here's what happened, guys. This is so insane. But this, yes, Equihart got it right here. Mel Gibson played John Smith. It's pretty crazy to think about. But here's what happened. Jeffrey Katzenberg takes the animation.
Well, the giveaway is the scene where he's talking the guy off the cliff where he wants to jump and offers to jump with him. That was the dead giveaway that it was Mel Gibson.
That's a fair point. Only Mel Gibson would do something that crazy, right?
Yeah, Lethal Weapon. We did Lethal Weapon with genre guys, It'll be coming under your, if it hasn't already.
And that's we'll talk about the genre guys in just a second right here. Yeah, one of the few Mel Gibson roles I actually like. I like Mel. I like him. And
I don't like him as a person necessarily, but I like him as an actor. Absolutely.
Right. And he actually does really good voice acting in this production. I think he has a strong voice for that if he ever pursued that as a career. But I think this is one of the only voice acting roles that he's really done, which is quite fascinating. But Jeffrey Katzenberg took the animators, who were also working on Lion King, and said, oh, this is going to be a fantastic picture. This Pocahontas, it's Romeo and Juliet, it's West Side Story, it's all these things. This is the one the audiences really like. Lion King, it's sort of unusual. It's a little esoteric. We're going to have to see on that. And that pitch really had a lot of people jumping on board the Pocahontas bandwagon as much as they possibly could. And the animators who were left for Lion King, it was a little bit disproportionate. And I think that is what kind of gave Lion King its identity, because a lot of the tried and true animators were over on the Pocahontas side, and Lion King, I think, offered something fresh because of it. So interesting to see somebody like Jeffrey Katzenberg, zig when he should have zagged in that moment. But fantastic.
We are all capable of it. The trick is to zig back.
Yes, that is the trick. Jeffrey was
and
nice.
I should point out that in those days, if you made a mistake, it was expensive, but not $400-500 million expensive. After your second and third one were $400-500 million expensive. And in spite of all that, they think you're going to be the CEO. So go figure. If you have good friends, it's better than good business sense, I guess.
Well, he was definitely vying for it. He wanted to actually be the president when Frank Wells passed away, and that was a real source of contention between him and Michael Eisner there. Eventually, Jeffrey Katzenberg leaves because Michael Eisner essentially denies him that position, and that's what starts the feud.
He says, how many mountains have you climbed, Jeff? Tell me why you can replace this guy.
That's a dark joke right there, but
but seriously, when your problem in this business, if you really want to be in one of the duet roles that they seem to have lately, is do you want to be known as a creative guy or as a money guy? And if you think you can do both, you're probably wrong.
Yeah, I think so. Because I think he was definitely a money guy. He was definitely somebody who was maybe a right hand for Michael Eisner at Paramount. So when he gets incorporated into the fabric of Disney, I think he at first thought of animation as, okay, let's provide a reason for Michael to get rid of this kind of failing business within the Walt Disney Company, that being animation at the time. Did some stuff to Black Cauldron, edited that thing down to try to make it financially viable. That didn't actually work out. Eventually, you get to the Renaissance era, but for a while there, it was like maybe Jeffrey Katzenberg does away with animation entirely. Michael Eisner, there's a famous story where he takes him down to the kind of it was placed in an office, I think, overlooking the animation building or the ink and paint building, and he's like, hey, Jeffrey, that's where they make the animated movies for Disney. And Jeffrey's like, oh, that's kind of cool. And Michael Eisner goes, and that's your problem, kind of thing. And so eventually I think he does get creatively invested into animation, starts making some weird decisions. Like, for example, he wanted to get rid of Part of Your World for Little Mermaid at one point, which that whole segment there, that song, which was kind of crazy when you think about it. Just because that's the I Want song. That's the thing that pushes that plot forward. So why are you looking to get rid of that song exactly? Apparently, during one of their test screenings, the audience of young children were a little bit
restless.
Yeah, they were restless during that time.
Well, of course, they wanted to cut the song from The Wizard of Oz too. Somewhere Over the Rainbow was deemed at one of the pre-screenings as a slow down and a drag.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
They seriously considered. Oh yeah, they seriously considered pulling it.
Man, that's wild. I mean, that's just
somebody stood up and said, "Excuse me, but this sets the whole thing of why we're going to Oz. What we're in search of, what the whole movie's about, and you probably shouldn't cut it out."
And it's one of those. It's almost a very similar story to what happened with Part of Your World right there. And then Jeffrey did it again with
also similar to that opening sequence in Demolition Man, which has nothing to do with the ongoing plot per se, but as the writer said, unless you've been to Kansas, you don't know what Oz is. You had to have the impact of the reason of why they put in that, oh, let's not have violence attitude. And what a mistake that was. So,
that's so wild to think of that movie without that scene right there. It really does get you. It gets you in as an audience member. You're like, whoa, this is really something right here.
Yeah.
But then Jeffrey wanted to do it again with Can You Feel the Love Tonight in Lion King. And it was Elton John who came back and said, you better not.
Yeah.
And apparently won the Oscar. So.
Wow. And speaking of movie music, would this be a good time to do this week's jukebox?
Absolutely would be. LEW'S Backlot.
As you may remember, last week we began a new feature of giving you links to some great movie music that we couldn't actually play on the show for all of the arcane reasons of YouTube nonsense. This week we have a very special one because we have two, believe it or not, people of great fame as musicians have been called upon to do entire scores for a movie that the director and the producer suddenly say, I don't like that one. Let's try somebody else. In this case, the movie is called Frenzy. And if you don't know it, it was Hitchcock's second to last movie and his last movie made in England. And it's about a guy who's called the Necktie Strangler and about innocent people getting accused of being him and all the usual Hitchcocky goodness. And they hired Henry Mancini to do the score. And we have the link to Mancini's score. And Hitchcock decided he didn't like it. It's a great score. You listen to it, you'll see it's a classic Mancini suspense movie. But you see, Hitchcock liked irony. And so he got Ron Goodwin, who was a noble laborer in the world of movie scores. He did over 70 movies in his career. The most famous being Where Eagles Dare, Battle of Britain, 633 Squadron, all of the Margaret Rutherford, Miss Marple movies, and of course, Frenzy. And what he did was play the irony heavy because the opening shot of this movie that the opening credits go over, and we know nothing about what's going on other than what we might have seen in a trailer or read. It is an aerial, long shot coming up the Thames River through London. And we pass the Houses of Parliament and Big Ben, and we pass all the various famous sites in the city of London to zoom in. And at the very end, they're pulling a dead body out of the river. And that's how the plot starts. But he played, instead of the suspense stuff that Mancini did, which you can listen to, when you listen to his, you'll see it starts off like one of these England, land of hope and glory documentaries. It's like this ultimate pomp and circumstance and royalty and pride. And it's all upbeat. And it ends with a stiff in the river. So you'll see his has that little bit of whimsy and that little bit of irony and that little bit of something that Hitch loved. And that Mancini, as great as he is, did not deliver. So we give you two links. One to the Mancini rejection and one to the Ron Goodwin acceptance, and enjoy. And by the way, you might want to go watch the movie too. It's pretty great.
Hey, as all of Hitchcock movies are right there. It's fascinating because when I was listening to these myself, I was like, wow, that's really interesting, the stark contrast between the two of them. I could definitely see why Hitchcock would like the accepted theme, because it, like you have brilliantly pointed out here, it definitely tickled his ironic fancy for sure.
Yeah, and he started out as a copyist, and he started out doing documentary films, did Goodwin. And he worked on arranging and conducting people like Petula Clark and Jimmy Young, and he worked with George Martin. He accompanied Peter Sellers, and then got into the biggest movies of them all. Anyway, yeah, the Miss Marple movies, he did what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those. And then those horror films, remember Village of the Damned and Children of the Damned with the kids with the glowing eyeballs?
Right.
He did those. And then, of course, all these great war movies, 633 Squadron, Operation Crossbow, Where Eagles Dare, which, by the way, the genre guys have done. And Where Eagles Dare, in case you didn't know, was Steven Spielberg's favorite World War II movie.
Yes,
the Battle of Britain, Force 10 from Navarone. And what's funny is the opening from the Battle of Britain, when he originally wrote it, was called the Luftwaffe March. And it was retitled Aces High to take the Luftwaffe out of it. And now it's played by all the bands of the armed forces in England. He did Those Magnificent Men in Their Flying Machines. And, let's see. Oh, for Disney in the 70s, he did One of Our Dinosaurs is Missing, and The Little Mermaid, and some of the music for that in the background. And anyway, and late in his career, God, he worked with all the great orchestras. And In 1972, he made an album called, are you ready? Somebody Named Ron Goodwin Plays Somebody Named Burt Bacharach.
It's an interesting way to go with that, I suppose.
Yeah. And oh my. He used to do 32 years in a row. He did Christmas concerts all over the south of England. And he had suffered with asthma. And in January 7th of 2003, having finished his Christmas concerts, he went home and died in his sleep. Ah, well. Anyway, but some damn good music, to say the least.
Really good music. Really good music. You can hear it in the link provided right there. Some really good stuff. Those links also too, by the way, want to make sure we point out they're also going to be in the description as well. They should be already there. And I updated last week's Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you to reflect last week's Lou's Backlot jukebox selection right there. The Rocketeer. Very much apologize, guys. Lou was pointing out to me, hey, where are these links? Oh, do apologize.
Well,
so
it was in the chat, but you had to go spelunking to get it. So
right,
you go back there now, it'll be in the description too.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
100%.
Did we get any questions? Oh, Maestro, the question.
I think we did. Let's see here. We have a few that we received on our email. By the way, if you guys want to email us with your questions, you can go ahead and do so at t3ponline@yahoo.com right there. Available for everybody. Man, you guys have been sending in some really great stuff, so thank you so much for all of that. Let's see here. We have a first question from Matt. A couple questions from him. The first one starts off with, "Hello there, Lou and Vash. I just wanted to hear if Lou had any stories about Edith Head. If you look back at the movies in the 1950s and 60s, I'm guessing, she is always the person credited for costumes. Please, Lou."
Well, she was at Paramount for a lot of those years. In fact, she supposedly said, if it's Paramount, they're probably wearing my clothes for that period. And then she moved on to Universal. And the story, speaking of Hitchcock again, is that Eva Marie Saint really hated the clothes that Edith had made for her for the great classic with Cary Grant that we all know and love of North by Northwest. And so since they were shooting in New York, Hitch took Eva Marie Saint to Bloomingdale's and set up a fashion show of everything they had to offer and bought a whole new wardrobe for her for the movie from Bloomingdale's. So, but, she cultivated her own image with that bobbed haircut and the big glasses. And of course, we know that Edna Mode in the Disney cartoon is based on her. She cultivated her image very, very well. So.
That's fantastic.
And as you can see, she won a few Oscars, as you can see in that picture over on the right.
She seemed very prolific, as is astutely pointed out there by both you and Matt there. Just want to go over some of these costumes that you were referring to. Okay, gotcha. I see.
Yeah.
Well,
and you can see somewhere online, I've seen pictures of the costume tests with Edith Head's clothes, and they're fine, but they don't do for Miss Saint what these do. So,
great sense of fashion.
It's kind of an interesting conundrum of what you do with a beautiful woman who is playing the ultimate cool Hitchcock blonde, and yet is supposed to strike up some heat with Cary Grant, and these certainly work. And I'll only point out that in modern day movies, unfortunately, the costume designer is of less importance, mainly because people keep their clothes on for less of the movie.
I suppose that's an astute observation right there. Very interesting. I had no idea about that story, and very charming. Oh, Alfred Hitchcock, the ultimate gentleman, I suppose. Let's see here. We have yes, I believe this is a this was the suggestion for me being on the genre, guys. We got Singing in the Rain, Kangaroo from 1952, and Bushwhacked from 1952 as well. What do you think about those three films there, Lou? Lou, you are muted. Don't know if you realized. Hello? Lou? Lou? Well.
Now I'm here. Pardon me. I had cough muted myself and forgot to cough myself back on. Singing in the Rain is on our list already. I don't know when we'll do it, but we will definitely. It says color or black and white. Not black and white, color. And Kangaroo and Bushwhacked, I don't know anything about, other than they sound Australian in one way or another. But I'll investigate them. Well,
they do. Not wrong about that.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yes. Well. The second one could be, if it was in the modern times, something about how you identify affecting which wrestling team you go on. But other than that,
oh man, we're in so much trouble. No,
are we?
You're fine.
I'm careful these days.
You are. I will say.
I mean, whatever you hear, folks, believe me, there's more in my brain than is getting on the screen. I hope. Anyway,
I know there is, Lou. Having conversated with you privately many times, it is fantastic. But unfortunately, those will have to stay private because of YouTube. Thank you so much there. But Singing in the Rain, that might be interesting. Obviously,
like I say, we are going to get on it on the Genre Guys. We're doing the Genre Guys tonight, by the way, because Lauren, of course, was busy yesterday with his charitable donation of his psyche to watching The Acolyte for donations. I don't know if you caught any of that, but wow. But tonight it's Get Shorty, which is a swell movie. Although I have to tell you, sneak preview of my ultimate opinion, it's a great movie all the way through and then goes nowhere at the ending, I think. And that's kind of a shame.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, man, I those movies.
I got to
are
watch
most
the sequel
frustrating.
maybe this afternoon before we do it, just so I see where it all goes. Because I've never seen the sequel. I'd seen the movie, but
sure.
What was it called? Stay Cool, I think. Anyway, keep cool. But anyway, next
up here, we have from Paul. A couple questions from Paul as well. Well, I've talked about how YouTube dominates streaming viewing, and I agree. In this piece, Luke Boma points out ESPN from Disney has reasons to worry. YouTube dominates as top platform for sports news, while cable viewership plummets. I won't spend a ton of time on this because obviously
I'm not sure what it's got to do with me, frankly.
Right.
It's a nice question, and I could give opinions, but it's not exactly a Hollywood story.
Doesn't quite match up there.
Yeah,
it does. It's. I think it's an interesting. It's something interesting to watch when you talk about how media in the modern era is moving, and one could say something like that.
I will say that YouTube is very aggressive in its marketing of sports, by which I mean I'm not a sports person. I don't subscribe to their deal on football, but this past year, as soon as the season was over, I mean the next day, I started getting emails from YouTube saying, "Hey, don't you want to sign up for next year? We'll give you a deal."
Wow.
So they were not letting any grass grow under their feet, and they've reaped the rewards thereof. So
that's really something.
Yeah.
To go along with this. Oh, please.
No, go ahead.
To go along with this, we've been covering this story right here on the kind of election night coverage and how the viewing for mainstream media outlets dropped sharply. And we were all kind of wondering, well, obviously they did. They went to other platforms. We actually had that confirmed the other day here. Where did election night TV viewer disappear to? New data suggests that they flocked to YouTube. Apparently they got 15 million simultaneous viewers on YouTube following election night specific streams. So that's where they went. The media landscape is absolutely changing, just like it did back in the day with, I don't know, radio and television, film and television, and so forth. So That's how we can draw it back around here. Let's see.
Another question. Or do
Absolutely. From Paul. And again, this is going to be another jumping off question as well. After the failures of The Acolyte and Agatha, as strange as it seems, Disney Plus produced a TV series based on Captain Nemo from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I was impressed by the trailer, which has been popping up saying that it is going to be on Prime Video. However, the internet says it will be on AMC Plus in the USA. It will be on Amazon Prime Video UK and IE. What seems odd is that I was impressed with the quality of the production, and it seems like the perfect fit for Disney Plus. Maybe it's not woke enough. Interesting how you bring that up, Paul, because apparently The Guardian didn't think it was as notable either. Nautilus Review, you can see why Disney gave up on this series. Not so good. I kind of want to bring it around to the original.
Keep reading the first couple of paragraphs of this. It's a hilarious story.
Yes. I'll have it on screen for the people who might want to do that. Because you're right, Lou, it is pretty funny.
Well, I read the first paragraph and they say, hey, it's a great idea. Well, is it? Let me ask you this. When you've seen 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and you know how it all ends, is your first thought, gee, I wonder how he got that way. Let me show me a movie about his early years. I don't think you care. It is a mark of a story that is self-contained perfectly.
So, in your opinion, Lou, you don't feel that there's anything to mine more from?
Well, not necessarily. And to presume there is as a basis for spending the money without a script that is good by itself, as that was, might be a jump too far. A crew of revolutionaries, random hangers-on, and a handful of hostages. Humility, Lucas. God, somebody trying to do Ian Fleming or what? I'll never forget when the British spy spoof show Jason King, in which he was kind of a jet-setting 1960s take on Fleming, only instead of being Fleming with a former spyish career in World War II writing fiction, he was a famous novelist who secretly had a spying career. But anyway, he talked about his latest book in which, are you ready for this? Probably not. The heroine, the girl that his James Bondish character seduces and gets involved with, was named, are you ready? Kitty Abundant.
Kitty Abundant?
Instead of Pussy Galore.
I see.
So that's funny.
Wait,
if you can do a whole show like that, I'll watch it. But
well, yeah, from what I have seen, Disney invested a lot into the show, and I think when they got the dailies back, it was like, maybe this show isn't for us. But you're at this point where you've invested so much. I think they sold the rights to a couple of people, at least internationally, in order to recoup some of their investment back. So it was something that they were pursuing. It sounded interesting, but it just really didn't work out. And if you see the trailer, yes, it doesn't look like a bad show necessarily, but you can kind of see where it's like that could get expensive very, very quickly. And I think Disney got cold feet on it, which is kind of strange. And I mean, look, I would say that the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea inspired fare have been really successful in the parks. The Imagineers have kind of lovingly dotted those out throughout Tokyo Disney Seas, for example, or Disneyland Paris, and so forth. All that stemming back to what we were going into, Lou, the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea exhibit at Disneyland that they used to have from 55 to 66. They basically
took the sets from the movie and put them in a warehouse and lit them and let people walk through and look at them.
Right.
As both a further value from the movie and as a promotion for the movie, which they had previously done with Babes in Toyland. And I remember walking through those sets at Disneyland, and these damn rubber trees were scary for a little kid. And I was not somebody who's scared lightly, but I got to tell you, there's nobody in them. There were no voices. It wasn't animated. They were just there, But if you touched them, which you weren't supposed to do, but that never stopped me, that rubberization made them kind of fleshy and burbly, and they vibrated with every little touch. And They were damn scary, I got to tell you. And then they had the village and the toy soldiers and all the rest of it.
They look scary. They look like something you don't want.
Well, they remind you now, of course, of the Ents in Lord of the Ring, but that was long before those days.
Also, too, you shared with me a video that I have to put in the chat as well.
Yeah. This is an old episode of The Wonderful World of Color, which they did primarily as a promotion for this movie. But they framed it in the idea that you were invited to the lot by Walt to attend the wrap party, the finished shooting celebration with the cast and crew of Babes in Toyland. And it's a great party. And it has some framing sequences that are kind of heavy-handedly funny, of the guard directing you and trying to find out where you want to go and wandering around. And of course, it gave you the, oh my gosh, we're inside the backlot at Disney, which is tiny, by the way. They talk about it's a big lot, so you could get lost. No, you couldn't. Go look on a map sometime, and please, God, let's not do our our Google Maps voyage around Hollywood again this time.
I won't. I won't.
But Disney was by far the smallest of the major lots. So anyway,
it's kind of cool because they have some footage of
they show you how the sets had been used in the past for Revolutionary War period and Zorro and Circus Parade, and how they can make them change just by repainting the signs and doing a few cosmetic changes.
And as
it acted as both a promo for the movie and a inside Hollywood backlot sneak preview kind of thing. So, and there's Walt saying, "Oh, you got here.
Come on.
You listen to that guy in the gate. Oh, he's got his own funny ideas about how to get people around this place." But anyway, and then onwards, beyond where you looked, he takes you around the sets, and then all the cast members, Annette and George Bruns makes an appearance in this. I don't think I mentioned that to you. Who
really
people will know his name from all the Disney park music that he did, but he's in here playing a trombone in a little combo. So the only chance I've ever had to see him at work, so to speak. Anyway, they have dancing and singing and carrying on. And it's one hell of a party, Marty.
Wow. That's it. I thought this was really cool to kind of see vintage Disney. We don't often see that much nowadays, but it's always kind of cool to see where the studio once was, and they used to have fun with this kind of stuff. Yeah, and Funicello, man, she was so good. Just an excellent performer.
And that channel, by the way, has basically, if not the whole episode, the opening and closings in places where they couldn't get full copyright of pretty much all of the old episodes of the Disney show in its various incarnations. And of course, there's Ray Bolger. And we were talking about Wizard of Oz. And of course, that's Ray Bolger of the dynamic trio of the Scarecrow. But he was a hell of a dancer. And yeah, Gene, what's his name? Gene, come on. Anyway, and he's also, of course, the assistant to Zorro in the Zorro show. Yes. And then next to him is Sergeant Garcia in Zorro, but also in this comedic stuff. There's a lot of great people in here.
I want to say Gene was also in another episode of Wonderful World of Color. I believe it's the one where they were showing off the Golden Horseshoe Review. I want to say it was, but perhaps I'm wrong about that. Great stuff, though. Absolutely fantastic. It's a really cool retrospective piece. Going into the not only
Gene
the
Sheldon.
Studio.
Gene
Sheldon. Yep.
And of course, you know who else is in that? When you watch that and you see Little Bo Peep, that little bitty girl, that's Ann Jillian, who you remember from umpteen variety show appearances in the 60s and the 70s.
Gotcha. Edwin.
Yeah, Edwin, of course. Edwin, father of Keenan Wynn, father of Tracy Keenan Wynn. But Edwin, his vaudeville act was The Perfect Fool. And he used to drive around on a bicycle attached to a piano and do songs and dances and things. But Tommy Sands, Tommy Kirk, Kevin Corcoran, boy, you got all the young men kid actors in one movie in that. And Henry Calvin, of course, is Gonzorgo, and also Sergeant Garcia. But yeah, Ann Jillian is Bo Peep.
Wow.
Anyhow,
that's interesting. This little statue that they're holding right there, that was actually sold recently in the parks. I didn't know it was actually based on anything. That's really interesting. It's a little random factoid right there. That didn't sell a lot, but I didn't know it actually came from
it would have. They should have been running this clip on the display.
They should have. Oh, that would have been so cool. That's interesting. Yeah, just a great little historical piece, though. I mean, honestly, it's really worth checking out, guys. Some really good stuff.
There, over on the right with the trombone, that's George Bruns.
Gotcha. Wow.
Who did so much of the music for the parks as a composer and arranger and stuff. There you go, Ann Jillian.
Yep.
Little
so good.
Anyhow, there's one you can watch, guys.
Yes.
For a look at how things were back in the day.
Back in the day, the days when Disney was still good. Speaking of things you can actually watch, interesting, Paul puts this in the chat as well. YouTuber Midnight's Edge has created a new 2024 edit with music and sound effects of the 1922 horror classic Nosferatu. This is not the new theatrical film based on to be released next year. Thought you and Lou would enjoy this. Might be worthy of Hollywood Backlot new show, even though not a Hollywood film. Pretty interesting stuff. I didn't even know that that Midnight's Edge did stuff like this, but yeah, they apparently have fully restored this specific production right here, providing new title cards, providing new tints.
There's suddenly so much interest in the old monsters. I think largely because of Dark Universe.
Yeah.
So you have to remember, these monster things had much more relevance in other ways in their day because people were more religious and because they were all, in one way or another, based around not going into arenas that should be God's. And not, Mary Shelley's was all about, Frankenstein was about playing God by bringing death back to life. And that isn't something human beings should do. So the scriptural effect on all this was considerable then and not as strong now. But
just really fascinating stuff.
Well, see, and there, that blue tint, they did used to, in some of these films, tint the night scenes blue and other colors for different effects. My personal favorite silent movie of all time, and I don't know if it's available out there anymore or not, but I remember seeing it at the famous silent movie theater in Los Angeles on Fairfax, which mostly ran comedies, but every once in a while would run some great dramas. And it's called The Last Performance. And it's Conrad Veidt as a famous stage magician. And it's pretty wonderful. And they picked their own music to go with it. But I discovered a whole classical composer because of watching that movie there. And that's a guy named Kalinikov, whose Symphony No. 1 they put to that movie, and it worked. Some good taste going on in that place. Anyway.
Wow. Absolutely.
And when I say they dyed these, they literally, like there, the amber, they took that black and white film and ran it through a tray of dye physically for every release print that went out, or at least the ones to the bigger towns. So
It seems like a very laborious process.
Yeah, I'll say.
That is wild. But apparently they took great care in reconstructing the tints that maybe have been left out on prior releases. Very cool stuff.
To do it right, you'd have to go back and find the untinted original stuff and then play with it electronically now, not physically. But anyway, what else you got?
All right, here we go. Let's see here. We have, yes, from Matt. You should do an episode on the Treasure of the Sierra Madre, one of the Bogart's big three films.
Well, Matt, maybe genre guys will do it. It's not really for here per se, but I don't know how you can limit Bogey to 3.
That's a fair point. Genre guys request, I guess, is the subject right there. So that makes a lot of sense.
All right. Well, I will pose that to the guys, and it's not just me. It's 3 of us, and
of course,
we sometimes have our little spats. Sometimes fight like dog and cats, but when we're all ready, we're ready for Rough and Ready. Anybody remember Rough and Ready?
Well,
first
it's
Hanna-Barbera cartoon series that really made it. I'll never forget when they went to a planet called Mooney Mula, a robot planet that remarkably resembled the Death Star. And Mooney Mula is the word aluminum spelled backwards. You can check it, but I won't.
Okay, that makes sense.
Professor Peach Fuzz and Rough and Ready.
You made reference, Lou, to the genre guys and how there are 3 of you. And yes, that is correct. There usually are 3 of you. But in this past genre guys episode, you actually teamed up with the Lost Guys. And there were 6 of you.
Yeah. Well, at the very, very end there, that was Angry's idea because he serves on both panels.
Sure.
As the kind of host. But it was his idea to do this silly, stupid movie. But you know what? It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it was pretty bad. That's why on my thumbnail for it, you might remember I had Travolta gripping the other guy by the neck. And the caption was, "And after you, my agent gets this too."
Well, I guess that's the question, right? Wasn't John Travolta uniquely interested to do that film?
Yeah, well, because Scientology was behind it, and he had joined them, and their creator, L. Ron Hubbard, wrote the book. But we covered it as a movie, not as a religious tract per se.
Right.
And it was stupid either way.
I was in the middle of screenshotting that film, and after a while, I was like, I'm done. I can't take any more of this.
Yeah. I don't have that luxury, you see. I have to be honest for the audience.
Sure.
Watch stinker or classic, either way, all the way. And
it's a fun episode regardless, though. It really is.
Yeah, it is.
I love listening to it, so that got me through it for sure. Definitely check it out, guys. It just made its release yesterday. A little bit late. Do apologize. Try to get better on the times there. This one was particularly interesting because of technical issues and everything else. But
if you had to pick one to be make us wait for, this certainly qualifies. I could have waited my entire life without seeing it, but 2 hours I'll never get back again. Anyway,
it's a terrible. I couldn't believe it. I was watching this. I'm like, taking the screenshots, skipping there. I'm like, man, I'm only halfway through this. This goes on. Like, this is laborious.
Yeah.
It's terrible. But the show is great. Definitely check it out on the channel right now. I think this is the last one right here from Matt again.
Ooh,
do you have any
Karen.
good stories about Stanley Kubrick?
Thank you, Karen, telling me where to find the last performance. It's superb. Kubrick stories. Kubrick was a pretty eccentric guy, and more power to him that he was able to do it. I remember thinking when they gave a nomination, I'm not sure if it won the award, but a nomination for his film Barry Lyndon for cinematography. And it was well known that Kubrick not only was his own camera operator and his own actual lighting guy, as opposed to the guy on the credits, But he even ground his own lenses, for God's sakes.
That's wild.
So when I saw that nomination, I thought, well, what did the guy who got the nomination do? And then I realized he lit all those damn candles, because the entire movie is lit with a zillion candles. So for a guy to run around with a long match and get an Academy nomination for cinematography is a pretty good trick. God bless America. But the most interesting memories of Kubrick that I've read have been Arthur C. Clarke's about making 2001, and you should read them. I'm not going to try and cherry pick them for events. Let's see.
An amazing filmmaker, an amazing person, very eccentric, I will say. I can't forget that story of 2001: Space Odyssey, where it's like, I never want these things to be reused again. They should be immediately destroyed. Talk about the sets and the models used for that film.
Right. So when they made 2010, they had to redo them based on the actual film footage to figure out how big they were.
Oh, that's tough stuff.
And we've done 2010, by the way, with the Genre Guys. And
yes,
in many ways, it is the superior movie. It is not as mystically, magically time your drugs for the right sequency as the original. But as a effort in storytelling and character, I think it's superior. I really do. Anyway.
Apparently that whole reference to, let's say, particular usage of some items while embarking on 2001 was a thing. Like, I didn't realize that. I thought it was always a joke, but apparently that did actually lift its box office prospects, because you had a lot of people lamenting.
People timed their drugs for that closing sequence. No doubt about
that's
it.
So wild.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
wild.
If they could. But
trippy stuff. Trippy stuff for sure. And then we've also heard a lot about The Shining and how demanding he was of certain actors and actresses, apparently filming scenes sometimes hundreds of times in order to get the right reaction. Just an interesting way of filmmaking.
But with 2001, we saw all that effort and all of that amazing artistry, and basically what it was a Stargate. It was a transit from one area of the universe to another. Right. And they did it every week on Stargate for a lot less money. So there you go.
I suppose that works.
And that's the history of movie making. The stuff that was impossible in one generation becomes commonplace in the next.
Yeah. And obviously that inspires some other things. Like, for example, I know Christopher Nolan was really inspired by 2001 to make Interstellar. Like, that was this kind of guiding light there. A lot of the same, a
impact. Yes.
Yeah. Using a device to transport you to one side of the galaxy or whatever, but also being used in that film. Apparently,
if you take it from a purely intellectual abstract, the universe is huge. A superior intelligence or civilization would need to get around, and they couldn't wait 500 years to get from one spot to the other.
Right.
So they'd invent something. What they invent, I don't know. But here's a couple options.
Yeah, kind of like the almost like the teleporter, let's say, for Star Trek. It's like how do we get you from one place to another quickly and cheaply?
And in some cases, very quickly, because as the original series went on and the cost of doing those dissolve effects got so high, they got backed up to the point where they would say, "Go back to the ship," and they'd walk off the solid camera, and you'd hear the sound effect, but you'd never actually see them beam up because they couldn't get it done in time for air.
So funny. Yeah, some stuff like that.
But you couldn't do that if you hadn't trained the audience to know that that's what that sound meant over the period of 10 or 20 episodes before it. So
that's a good point. That's a great point. Apparently Interstellar Make its way back into theaters December 7th for its
I want to watch it
10-year
again.
anniversary. I am excited for it. So there you go.
Well, you're easily excited.
Oh,
anyway.
Dang it, Lou. Dang it. No, you're probably right. Correct. Kiki and Luca, I would much rather watch a classic Spielberg movie than a Kubrick movie. I think Godfather is much better than The Shining, but I still enjoy both genres. What do you think about that?
But of course, Godfather is a Coppola movie, not a Spielberg movie. And so you have a lot of we've had the joy of living in periods of great talents who all got a chance to show their stuff. People say now, oh well, but Spielberg has kind of gotten. So what? So what? Give me all of those great movies he did. You can't take those away from us. So
Absolutely. Yeah. It was such a prolific era of just great filmmaking, definitely in the latter 20th century, but obviously throughout, just some incredible stuff.
And doubly so because between the high cost of making a movie and the difference in the system of not being these directors just being on retainer, if you will, on salary. As great as the great movies of, say, Michael Curtiz or George Cukor or any of the great classic directors are, they made a whole hell of a lot of movies from which to A, learn their craft, and B, come up with some great ones. And not all of them were great ones, largely because they were assigned the next movie on the docket. And maybe that wasn't the greatest story in the world for them, but they did it. And in the process, out of 50 or 75 or 100 movies, made 8 classics or 10 even, which is a high percentage, but they made those 50 or 100 movies. These guys never did. Kubrick made what, 12, 13?
That's a good point.
To get as many right as they did from a limited number is harder.
Yeah, I suppose. I suppose the early directors.
You must remember that even for Spielberg, even for Kubrick, even for Coppola, their name doesn't sell tickets. Not enough. Stars sell tickets. Directors never. So.
Yeah, I think the only notable exceptions that I can think of are probably James Cameron and Christopher Nolan.
Even then, to average Joe Sixpack, I doubt it. Now, that's why they don't say from director so-and-so. They say from the maker of.
Ah, good point.
So people know the movies more than they know the people behind them. Angels, I think I saw the trailer. Yes, I think it's a great story. I think it wouldn't be done other than in that atmosphere of what Angel Studios is doing, and therefore I'm glad they're doing it.
Yeah. I have actually not seen the trailer for this. That's a really interesting. It's really interesting.
Well, you know
movie.
who he was.
I gotta check it out. Apparently, he was a dissident for a certain party in Germany.
He saved a lot of people from the gas chambers. He sure did.
I see.
He was kind of a Schindler's List kind of guy. Peter Jackson, sure.
That's a cool. It's a cool investment.
But like I say, I don't think it would get made in major studios, but in that situation, it will. So let's remember, Angel Studios is a subscription service. You pay them and you get to watch their movies. Therefore, by self-choosing to be part of their audience with their focus on not particularly religious, but of spiritually upbeat and brave and noble subjects, you're not getting any of the people who don't care about that, which is fine if you can make it work financially. They took the risk of deciding there were enough people who wanted that to make it worth spending money on the movies, as long as they were reasonably made. So, Fox and Universal and Disney and they can't afford to be that specific because they've got an overhead and a cost of doing business that needs to be slicked. Anyway, next question, next answer, next anything.
Yes. Well, I will tell the chat right here. Go ahead and provide us your questions. We're just about to wrap up the show.
One thing. Anunk is saying it's being released in theaters. Sure it is. But that's as a way of advertising the channel to people who haven't seen the ads online. So they're going to say, you want to see more like this? You got to join us. So it's, in other words, the theater revenue is a loss leader on the overall studio concept. So I think
that's some really great insight there, Lou. I was unaware, and it makes perfect sense to be a loss leader to get you onto their subscription service. That is interesting. Definitely. I guess Ted Sarandos or somebody from Netflix was talking about that and how, like, well, we've looked at the theater model, it doesn't quite work for us. We'll keep it on streaming. Interesting. Very interesting. Please, people in the chat, provide us your questions if you have any more. We're just about to wrap up the show. Lou, what do you got coming on the genre, guys, as we allow people to
well, like I say, next up is Get Shorty, which we're going to do tonight. And it'll be out on the Pro Show channel. About Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they put them out. And then here, 90 days later. And yes. I see we're already up to 30, which means at another 36, 3 times 12. We've got a lot more that we've done that haven't shown up here.
Right.
And but all of them are good. What's the next one here?
The next one is Local Hero.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, you want heartwarming, you want magical, you want a cozy little movie with a little bit of the Northern Brit, Irish, Scottish fling to it. And a mermaid, not Ariel, and a Russian, and some and Burt Lancaster, every bit as wonderful as he was in Field of Dreams, that same kind of character of a kind of eccentric old timer, and Peter Riegert. John Capaldi, the Doctor Who guy, is in it before he was ever that. And it's just such a charming, wonderful, cozy movie was the word we decided on. Cozy. And it's great. Have you ever seen it?
I have not.
You must.
Oh, well, I will.
You must.
Absolutely.
And of course, Mark Knopfler did the music. I think we put a link at one time in here about that, but we could do that again and really widen our musical perspective. Let's see.
Yeah, if you got it. I wouldn't chat for it, but
let's see.
I will say that I get copies, at least I try to, for every single film that you cover on the genre, guys, and really try to watch it so that way I can cut the best portions out of it and make it the most relevant for whatever you're seeing on screen when you actually go over those episodes there. I will definitely take a look at this one because I know you've evangelized about it before.
Again, it's not going to knock you over. It's not a blockbuster. It's not a... Well, if you listen to this music, I think you'll get a sense of it. But it's just so nice. Anyway.
Okay. Go ahead and we'll load that up there. Oh, no, wait. That's the wrong link. Oh, did you send it in the Slack?
No, I put it... Where did I put it? I put it here.
In the private chat?
Yeah.
Well, what? That come up?
Well, somehow the same one came up again, huh? Okay, well, wait a minute. Sorry. Here, let's see. Here it is. There we go.
Uh-huh. That should be the one. Yep, sure is. There you go. Name of local hero. Fantastic stuff right there. I have heard that before. It's some good stuff. Okay, definitely gotta check this movie out now, for sure. Nomination for genre, guys. Eddie and the Cruisers. Interesting. Lou knows him.
Oh, Eddie and the Cruisers. That's a good picture. Yeah, I'll put that in the mix for the boys to think about.
Fantastic. Well, there you go. That's our show.
See, we got 3 pieces of music. We got umpteen questions. We got a visit to the Backlot at Disney, and on top of all that, we're still here and alive and conscious. And it's time for go to Burger King and have some medical meat.
It's so funny because
we like to keep these shows packed full of fun, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When exploring tales from Tinseltown and Lou bringing
I'm
those
reading.
tales
I'm
to
reading
us.
another movie. I'm probably going to want to recommend when I finish it. So look forward to that next week.
Ooh.
Another movie, another book about the star system and how they made them and all that sort of thing.
Ooh.
So there's that to look forward to.
Your book recommendations are some of the best there, Lou.
Oh,
that is going to be absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. Maybe some stories you can share from it. That's really cool. Yeah, working with Lou. Oh boy, have
it your way, Josh. Have it your way. That's all I can say.
Fantastic. Well, for anybody who wants to send us title suggestions for the show, I suppose you can, or anything else you've seen the gamut that we've done here.
Let's keep this show, and the genre guys. Although
absolutely,
we can connect the two, but we've gotten away from very old Hollywood a bit in the last few weeks, and I'm sure there's a hunger for that too, which was the original presumption of doing this. So see if you can look into that and ask some questions too.
We will definitely be prioritizing questions having to do with classic Hollywood, vintage Hollywood, anything from the golden era and so forth. So please, your queries on anything of that and more, t3ponline@yahoo.com. You can go ahead and provide us with that. And
you said Yahoo.
Oh, did I?
Yahoo. And I thought, oh, Yahoo, Hollywood life for me. I don't know.
There you go.
Anyway.
Sorry about that. Maybe
right.
I got to catch up on that sleep like you should, Lou. T3ponline@yahoo.
I'll tell you something, folks. When you go through something like this thing I went through, man, you're dead for days because your body, now that the blood is pumping right, is hard at work fixing all those things it was ignoring in the interest of survival. And I just lie in bed and it's like getting a full work,out. And by the way, I'm losing weight, which is a nice thing too.
Ooh.
So
a slim LW Ghost. I like that.
I'll never be slim. The only slim that matters to me is Betty Bacall. So that's what Bogart used to call her, was slim.
When I say should, I meant have, as in you have been catching up on a lot there, and I should as well, actually.
Yes.
As is apparent by the show, I guess. But hey, if you like the show, please go ahead and hit the like button on this video. Very much appreciate it. If you can, share us out. It helps us against that pesky YouTube algorithm. Boy, oh boy, has it really been coming down us hard lately, both on this channel and that Park Place, which is really unfortunate. So please help us out any way you can on that front, as helpful as you are. Thank you so much for watching the show. And if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please hit the subscribe button for more Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you, the Genre Guys, T3PO Live, and videos on the daily. Thank you so much. We will see you around the Backlot next week. Take care.